Welcome to season 6 of the Runners Roundtable, where in season 6, we get to hear from some pretty incredible runners and we get to hear their favorite running memory or memories. And we get to learn what it's like to be a runner that is in this sport for reasons greater than getting faster, even though that is part of some of the memories, but getting faster, running longer. There's always something deeper to it than just those very specific metrics. So I'm really curious to hear today's guest, what her memories are. It's Sabrina Ehmke. You've heard her voice before on the podcast multiple times. And we have gone down some rabbit holes when it comes to the marathon majors and building community and so many, just so many different topics within running that are a reminder that we don't do it alone, even if it feels like we're alone. And I say that because you've also raised an incredible amount of money for charities in your quest to get those marathon majors finishes. And I know, again, community is very, very integral to everything that you do and how you show up in the running space. So before I tell everybody who you are, I'm going to invite you to tell us a little bit about yourself, your running story, and what's your current relationship with running right now?
I love that last question because that one definitely changes depending on the season. And I don't just mean like earth seasons, I mean life seasons. Well, first of all, Stephanie, thank you so much for having me back. It's always really lovely to chat with you. And I just want to shout you out for all the success you've had recently with running as well. And it was great to see you back in Chicago and, officially being a part of Team Sugar Runs as a coach now. So that's been really fun to watch your journey also. So thank you for inviting me back. So I am Sabrina Ehmke. I'm based in Skokie, Illinois, which is just outside of Chicago. And I do a myriad of things. I'm a high school teacher, civics and psychology. I also am the founder of the Skokie Swifters Run Walk Club, which we're going into our 5th year next year. So we're planning a huge celebration. And then I'm also a wife, a daughter, a cat mom, and a friend, and a world traveler, which is a lot of where my running story kind of stems from. I started running in more seriously, and by seriously, I just mean making it a part of my daily life back in like 2003. I had done track for a year in high school and ran kind of casually for exercise throughout college. But in 2003 is when I trained for my first marathon, the Chicago Marathon. And so, yeah, it's been over 20 years now. I have been privileged to be able to go around the world. Why I'm wearing the Antarctica hat today, if you are seeing this. And I have also been privileged to be able to complete the World Marathon Majors. So, throughout that, I've had lots of races, lots of PRs, worked with several coaches. I've also been a coach myself. More recently, I've started coaching in the last couple years, adults. I've also coached children. I've coached high schoolers. And so it's kind of running has taken me into a variety of realms, I suppose you could say. And one of the most important to me, as you mentioned earlier, has been the community aspect and the larger running community, but also closer to home with the Skokie Swifters. That has really become a huge change in my life in the last few years and has brought many wonderful people into my life and has just made Skokie feel like more of a community, not just to myself, but to a lot of people. And I'm very proud and humbled to be able to say that. So that's in a nutshell.
Yeah. And then current relationship with running?
Yes, that's right, that question. So current relationship with running is it's there. Um, I honestly wish I was able to be a little bit more consistent in the last few months. As a teacher, the beginning of the school year is always really challenging to kind of maintain that momentum that you might have built up during the summertime, which I did. And so the first couple months are always a little up and down. And I certainly have had some great running travels, and experiences in the last few months. But I think I'm starting to if I wasn't already, I'm really starting to get to the point in my running where it is truly becoming more about the enjoyment and the being grateful to do it aspect. I think that has always been as a part of my running, but there definitely has been a time where trying to lower my times and trying to get PRs and those kinds of things have been more important, and I'm really starting to see that shift in my own priorities when it comes to running. And I think that 2026 is going to be the year of like running for fun for real. Like I think I personally often say that. And whether it's being inspired by somebody else and how fast they were, or being pressured by myself to feel like I have to do it faster or try harder, I really do think I am personally ready to go into that phase of this is something that we are privileged to do. Our bodies, we should be thankful for it. And my husband and I joke a lot about our quote unquote fictional sponsors. Like, if you don't get out for your run, like it's okay, right? He's a cyclist, and if he comes back from his ride and it's not the greatest or whatever, it's like, oh, those sponsors are going to be calling you, right? And kudos to the people who are actually sponsored runners and that they have to, perform under that pressure and stuff, but that's not us. And I was fortunate to get into the Sydney lottery for next year. So that's going to be my big race goal, but it's going to be to go to Australia and just run and hopefully see some koalas along the way.
Have you been to Sydney before?
So I actually studied abroad in Melbourne
Okay.
in college for about for one semester, and then I've been all over Australia a few times, and so I have been to Sydney several times. So I'm lucky in that when I go there, this really will be a running trip, and I won't necessarily feel like I have to do a lot of touring while I'm there. And it turns out that we have two other Swifters that also got in, so we're going to have a little crew down there from Skokie.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's why I asked because I'm like, I wouldn't be surprised if you've already been there and now it's just you're going to run there.
It
So
is.
I think I just want to kind of touch upon a few things here because let me go back.
Hmm.
How are you okay with being in this season of less running? And I
Mm.
ask that because oftentimes we think we've got to go, 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 and we need to train and we need to be doing it all. And we need to we can't take a break. And then if we take a break, are we even a runner, right? Like, are
Mm.
we even still runners if we're not consistent with it? Are we still runners if we're not training or moving at the same capacity as we have in the past? So that's my question of
Hmm.
how are you okay with it? Because I feel like a lot of people struggle with
Yeah.
those seasons when either you have to choose to pull back or you're forced to pull
Hmm.
back.
Hmm. Um, so a couple things come to mind when you ask that. I don't know if it's being like, I guess it's more accepting, right? And so yeah, being okay with it, accepting of it, and realizing that it doesn't have to be the same the entire time. And I think that's super personal and that's super hard because if you are, especially if we want to talk about the social media aspect of this, if you are involved in like different running communities on social media, that pressure is there to see people who are often posting their best. We've had this conversation a lot before, not just in this podcast, but in other realms. And I think it's really a personal, you have to come to that acceptance. So for me, it really is a kind of a reassessment of priorities and also understanding that it will be there, running will be there when I need it and when I want it and however I want it, I can make it whatever I want because it's my running. Um, so that's one thing that comes to mind. And then the other thing is for me, it was having other runners that demonstrated more of the fun and casual aspect. Um, I have plenty of those models in my life, but there are two that I actually coached, one a little bit longer than the other. And the way that they approach running is just joy. and stress relief. And they might have goals that are maybe loosely related to time, or related to finishing, or related to whatever run walk ratios they might be doing during the race itself, or just no racing at all. One of these people in particular, we might have talked about this once before. There's this great like meme on that I've seen going around, where the first video shot that you see is of a lion, and it says most runners walking up to the start line. And the lion is just like seriously, slowly, like walking out there, like he's just gonna really tackle it. And then in the next scene, it says me walking up to the start line. And it's this happy little dog just like bouncing up to the start line, ready to have a great time. And I told this runner this before, this friend also, she is that person, or she is that dog, she is that runner for me. And I think a lot of people see that in her, and that's been helpful for understanding the balance aspect. And then the other runner that I'm thinking of, she came into wanting to be coached to just have consistency and accountability. And like, yeah, she's done a couple races, but that wasn't super important to her. And I think just having more of those models is really helpful too. And so seeking that out, I think, can be helpful in reframing what your priorities are.
I think that's just lovely to hear, because we often think that there has to be an end goal with
Mm.
running,
Hmm.
and you've got to have that race. And I mean, listen, as a coach, I will always ask my athletes, do you have a race in mind? And it's not because I want them to race. That's not it. And I explain to them, it's more of, I like to know if there's a race in mind, because then I can understand a timeline of
Hmm.
what is training going to look like, but I can understand also maybe what is something that's motivating you to
Hmm.
try to be consistent. Because if you know you have a half marathon in 15 weeks, then I'm going to tap into that knowledge of you having a half marathon in 15 weeks when it comes to those days when you're like, I don't want to run, or I don't want to do this. And it's
Mm.
it's not to be like, hey, you have to run because you have this half marathon. It'll be that reminder of, let's remember that this run, it's another stone in the foundation on the way to that race. And what's been interesting for me this year that I finally came to terms with it. Again, we've talked a lot about pacing and times and PRs and all of that stuff. And it's important until it's not.
Mm.
It's important until it's not helpful, right? Like those things can be very powerful motivators to get you to do your training, to get you to the start line, to get you to, work quote unquote hard during a race. It's all relative. And I've always had trouble with that, of like, oh my gosh, why is everything so time based and time focused? And this year was finally my year of saying, you know what? Time is important. And maybe it's important because you are looking to get a PR. But honestly, time is always going to be important because you need to know how to fuel yourself. You need to know what your
Yeah.
fueling plan is, right? So even if you're running for fun, if your fun looks like 5 hours in a marathon, you need to know how to fuel yourself for
Yeah.
5 hours. And that was like for me, a big mental shift this year of, oh yeah, time is always going to be important, but it's not always going to be important because you're looking to PR. It's going
Mm.
to be important because you need to know how to sustain yourself, how to take care of yourself while you're out there running, because how you take care of yourself out there when you're running, it's going to help you when you recover from
Yeah.
those runs. So that was kind of like this shift of me being okay with that relationship to time, because it is really hard to be in the running space and see all the lions around you when really
Hmm.
you just want to be like, like a long-haired dachshund, just like trotting up,
Yeah.
like it's hard to kind of live in
Yeah.
that when maybe you want to be different, or maybe you are different and you're trying to figure out how you fit in it
Mm.
all.
Hmm.
So
Well, and I think just to that point that, not to do a shameless plug for either of us, but like I think that can be one reason why a coach can be so helpful. And I think because they can help you think outside of what maybe you see as like the big deal, which is actually maybe a smaller piece, and this other piece should be the bigger deal. And, the times that I've worked with a coach, I think just related to what we're going to be talking about, some of those races are more memorable to me because I think I was able to let some of those stressors go because my coach was dealing with them. And I was able to focus more on, either the race experience or the joy of the running or the travel destination if it was a destination race. And I think those memories maybe stick a little bit more because I had somebody else helping me through that too.
Yeah. And I mean, listen, this season has been such a beautiful one for me as the person who gets to talk to you all, because even in those races that are the most memorable, that happen to be the PR races, when I ask more questions about what was that race experience like, you find out that, oh, the PR time is actually the least
Mm,
interesting part of
hmm.
the entire experience. Perhaps the PR is more a result of, you having your entire family there to support you,
Yeah.
or that kind person that you met on the course that stuck by you the entire time, or that
Hmm.
person who, sacrificed their time to help you meet your time. Like that's what I'm realizing, where it's, you think it's that, but it's not. And the
Hmm.
reality is, and I'm sure I can ask you this, right? Where you've been running for long enough that if I tell you, oh, Sabrina, can you tell me, and I'm just, throwing some random thing out. Sabrina, can you tell me your time in the 2016 Chicago Marathon? You may not be able to remember that.
Yeah.
But if I say,
Yeah.
hey, what do you remember about 2016 Chicago? You might be like, oh, that was the year it was really hot or something, like
Yeah.
you're going to remember an aspect of the experience and not so much the time that you finished, even though in 2016, 2017, perhaps that time was really, really important to you, but that's not going to be the thing that sticks.
Hmm. Absolutely. And I think that takes maybe, I don't know, for me, I think it did take some maturity as a runner too to realize. This one runner I'm speaking of, she's been doing it for a while, but more seriously in that she's doing it more often in the last few years. And she already has that kind of view. So maybe it's not necessarily a longevity thing, it's also just a maturity of life thing and understanding, again, personal to you, what those priorities are. And it takes some trial and error too. I think that's important to recognize. It's not like, oh, I just realized this, I'm going to start running for fun. Like it doesn't just happen. I mean, it can, I suppose, but it took me a while to sort of become more okay with that and understand that that pressure doesn't necessarily have to be there. Because again, those sponsors aren't there either.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's even to what you're saying about a maturity level with running, or just, I think part of it is maturity, part of it is connected to what are your experiences when you run. And I think a big part of it is, how are you processing those
Mm,
experiences and then taking that processing into the lessons, right? Because you may be someone, and this was me, right? Where when I started running, I mean, it was the trajectory. When I started running, I was just curious. I was like, oh, what can I do? How far can I
mhm.
run? Like, what can I push myself to do? And then I started focusing on time. And that focus on time that's honestly just what killed me, because
Mm,
it wasn't genuine to me.
yeah.
It was what I saw everyone else doing. Everyone was focusing on time. I mean, when I started running, it felt like, and it's still like that, right? But it felt like, oh, everyone's trying to get a BQ. And that's how you know you're
Yeah.
progressing. Like running Boston is the epitome of being a runner. And if that's what you do, like that's how you know you've made it in the running world, because you've made it to Boston. And it took me trying to reach that goal to be absolutely miserable with running,
Mm,
and
hmm.
realize that that's not the goal for me, because it's not my goal. It's the goal that I think it should be mine, because it seems like everyone else is doing that. So I think that's part of the experience too, of you're doing the thing and you realize this is not fun for me. This is not joyful. This is actually miserable, or it feels like a chore. But it does take that insight into why isn't this feeling good anymore? Or why am I struggling with the motivation to do it? And it's because the reasons why you're doing it maybe aren't genuine to who you are. So,
Yeah, and I think to your point about, what everybody else is doing, like that's I think hard to step away from sometime, especially when if you are somebody who doesn't necessarily have a real life community at home where you are, and you do rely more on the social media or the virtual communities, which can be equally as great.
mhm.
But maybe that kind of pressure seeps in a little bit more because you don't necessarily have the person day to day that you're running with or that you meet up with for once a week run or something to like show you a different kind if that's all you're following too. And I think, we've talked about this before, the world majors that has sort of become kind of like really popular, but also simultaneously a lot of people see it as like, okay, well, now everybody's doing it. It's so expensive. Like, it's just another thing. There's other things I could be doing. And I think the priorities around some of these more popular, quote unquote, running goals are changing too. And that
Yeah.
I think is indicative of people realizing that it doesn't just have to be about these specific races or these specific goals. It can be whatever you want it to be. It's yours, it's your running journey.
Yeah. And I think, you know, just, to plug us, right? Where it's like, if you need those reality checks on how beautiful but how hard running can be, like come talk to us
Hmm. Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
find that I find that I like there are moments where I feel hypocritical because I'm like, wait, but I'm running. I mean, I'm signed up to run Chicago next year as well, and I'm like, I'm going back and I'm running another major, and but for me, it's like that's the only one that I'm doing. Like that's the only
Hmm.
marathon I'm doing. That's just where my life is at right now with everything else that's going on, and Chicago holds such a special place in my heart. But I also recognize that it's insanity to go back. Like it's so expensive. I mean, it's where we are, 10 months out from this race experience, and I've already booked my hotel. And I can't believe how expensive
Yeah.
hotels are. Like I remember when I first, the first few times I ran Chicago, it was like $200 a night for a hotel,
Oh
and it
man,
was so
if
great.
only.
And now I'm like, oh, if you can get a hotel for $500 a night,
Oh,
you're in a good place. So it's like even that of
yeah.
recognizing that, hey, this is not an accessible experience. Like it
Mhm.
is not. And even though it is a beautiful and I love it, it's also, can we be honest of, okay, you're doing this, but what are some of the things that play into that? You have to have the time to go race, you have to have the
Yeah.
time to train, you have to have the money for race entry, for the things you need to run. Like it's not, I just think there is, in glorifying these experiences, we're erasing the reality of how
Mm.
challenging it is to actually do them
Hmm.
when there are plenty of great races in a lot of people's backyards that are local or that are more homegrown that can be supported. And again, I know I'm
Yeah.
guilty. Like I'm always like, oh,
Oh,
I'm in here in between this, but
I
also,
mean, same, right? I like if you talk about memories, like, yes, achieving my 6-star medal is one of my most proud accomplishments. And I realize the privilege of time and money and everything that goes into that in order to get there and do it. And I think to your point, something I wanted to just echo is there are so many other ways to have this kind of experience. And on top of that, I think we need to remember that like running a marathon is hard and special. We talk about that less than what 1% of the world, even
mhm.
less than that. And that still holds true. And while it's become so popular, I also want to recognize that it doesn't have to be the ultimate goal for every runner. And I think some of those memories that we have are made in not the biggest moments necessarily, but the smaller everyday moments too, especially if you have a community. I mean, that's one of the things that I value most about the Skokie Swifters is that some of our, every Tuesday night we meet, and some of those nights are some of the most memorable we have together. And there is something maybe even more special in that than the training for the marathon that happens, because that's hard. And again, it just goes back to you have to decide as a runner what are the goals you have, what is personal to you, what are your priorities, and what are the memories that you want to make with regards to all that.
Yeah. And I just want to add something to that of the importance of discernment
Mm,
in what you're doing. And even just when you're online and who you're following, remember that the
yeah.
minute you start getting into running a marathon, let's say, you are going to start attracting and seeing more
Yes.
content of people who are running
Yes.
marathons. So
That
then
that
you're going to start.
algorithm.
Correct. So then you're going to be like, wait, everyone's running a marathon. And
Yeah.
no, no,
No.
friends. No, no. Let me tell you, I have a household. I am one of four people in my household, and I am the only person that runs marathons in my household. Right.
Yep.
So when we
Same.
kind of, yeah, so I'm like, so it's an opportunity for everyone to look as to who's in their circle, and then just maybe do that simple mathematics for yourself. Because online, if I were to listen, honestly, if I were to look at my Instagram and try to gauge, like, what are people doing? Yes, I would think everyone's training for a marathon.
Yeah.
I would think everyone's getting engaged. Um, Everybody's dad is coming home from deployment. I would think,
Interesting.
like,
Yeah.
that's my algorithm. Or I would think
Exactly.
everyone's adopting a dog. And it's like, but that's not it. Like, that is
No.
just that curated. That is what, because I'm engaging with that
Mhm.
content, that's what I'm seeing more of. So I think it's for everyone, just, that little tip of taking a moment to step back and look at who is a part of your community so that you could see that even if you think everybody is doing it, not everybody's doing it. And yeah, and to
Yeah.
what you said, you don't have to do it. Like,
Not
you don't have to do anything.
not unfortunately not everybody is a Sagittarius who loves cats. I mean, this is my algorithm, right? So, yeah, absolutely. And you have to keep that in mind, and I think we forget that, just to echo what you're saying too. It's if think of who you're following, think of what their experiences are, and the people I think that recognize that they can see both, right? Like, yes, they might be the marathon runner, but they also recognize that that's not for everybody. And I think for whatever reason, but I think that that's the key point to take away is just that you are doing this for yourself, hopefully, and you have to decide what is the priority to you, what is meaningful to you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you and I can go on forever and ever about
We
these
sure
things
can.
because I know we're very passionate about seeking joy on the run
Yeah.
and encouraging and inspiring others to do the same. So I know that, but want to come back and talked about everybody. Now let's talk specifically about you and your favorite running memory or memories. I know it's a big ask. And I was wondering if you could share what that or those memories are with us.
Sure. So I will tell you, I've been thinking about this a lot over the last week. We had semester exams at school, so I had a little bit of downtime in the afternoons and gave it some thought. I And also, I was chatting about it with my husband this morning, and we were thinking about this in sort of two categories we kind of
Mm.
came up with. And so, yes, it is plural for memories, but we talked about this in terms of like personal and then also community. And so I'm going to talk about the personal first, if that's okay, and then I'm going to talk about the community. Um, in terms of personal, I've been, again, very fortunate to have over 20 years of running memories. Um, and, you might think that some of the bigger ones do stand out, and they certainly do. There's one reason why I'm wearing this Antarctica hat today, is because I think that's probably one of the most memorable, simply because of its uniqueness, its novelty. That is a place that, unless I win the lottery, I am definitely not going back to ever again in my life. And when you think about the 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 distance, the time and the effort that it took to make that happen, and obviously I paid a tour company to take me there. So I didn't necessarily personally arrange those things. But when you're there, you get a sense of being alone and like you have never really had before. At least I had never really had before. You are at the bottom of the earth. You are at a place that it took, in our case, uh, like 3 plane rides and a 1.5 day cruise on a ship to get to. And so when you're down there and you, fortunately, the ship had internet, you pull up Google Maps and you see your little blue dot and where you are. It puts things into a perspective, not just with running, but with life that I think we don't often get. And I think the pictures and the, descriptions and all of that, of course, it can those things can be shared and you all can get a sense of what that is like. But I think one reason why it's so memorable to me is because that experience is mine and mine alone. And I was fortunate to have 2 friends on that cruise with me, so they understand. But there is something about that that no one else will ever understand unless they go there themselves. But to me, that's not a negative thing. Like to me, that is something that is precious to me. It is something that I am, of course, privileged to have been able to do, but that is something that gets to be mine and mine alone. And, I haven't said the word running yet, really. And I think while that was a huge part of that experience, it was only one day of about 15 days that I was gone. And it was so much more than that. And I think so the running experience itself, basically, we were docked on King George Island, which is a small island that sits off the peninsula of Antarctica. And that's where the race was run. So there are several scientific bases there, and we were docked at the Russian scientific base. From there, the route took us to the Argentinian base, back to Russia. We kind of called it going from one country to the next. Back to Russia, off to the Chinese scientific base, and then one more time for the half and 3 more times for the full marathon. So it was basically an out and back course repeated. Um, it snowed that day. It was very unusual to have snow at that time. It was a trail, it was very hilly, and I have never heard quiet like that before. Even though you hear the crunching, there's only about 100 people running out there, so it's very unlikely that you'll be next to somebody directly the whole time. And I don't think I've ever had quite a solo experience like that. Um, and so while that was just one day of the 15 days, I think that that will stand out for a very long time. Um, and again, I think we can get into the politics of climate change and all of that too, because I think that was another area where it puts this whole new perspective and realization for appreciation for what we do have, and what we need to take care of. And that includes us, of course. And I think that that stands out for just that reason of here's what it's like to really be alone and out there. And again, I recognize I'm talking about this in like a physical aspect, and I understand that, we can talk about this in a more serious, like, challenges with mental health and things like that. I understand this is a kind of a different focus, but just that realization of we are very small in this world. And to have that coupled with running was just an extra bonus, I suppose.
Yeah, that sounds like an intense experience. I listened to a couple of months back a podcast with, I don't know if it's the same tour company you did, but it was a guy who organizes,
Mm.
like he is one of the founders of one of these tour companies. And he spoke specifically about the Antarctica one. and how challenging that one is, because you are spending a lot of time on the boat, on the water. It
Yeah.
is not, and he emphasized that it's not just the race. Like, the experience is greater than the race, even though that is what people are there to do. They're there to go run. And I just remember listening to it and thinking, one, I'd never be able to do that because my motion sickness, and I just,
Oh, it was something else, I'll tell you.
yeah, there's no amount of Dramamine that's going to help me through that. Like, it's just not going to happen. But also the privilege it is to be able to see that, right? Like, I
Yes.
often tell, like, I tell my kids, right? I live in Miami, Florida, and Miami is known for its beaches, right? We have beaches here. And there are a lot of people who live in Miami who've never been to the beach,
Mm.
never been to the beach because time, money, access, however you want to say it, they just can't get there. And we go to the beach often, right? Like, we go, if we're not at the beach on the East Coast, we've traveled to the West Coast to go to the beach. Like, so we've been to the beach. And it's just one of those things where, and again, in the context of like Antarctica, where that is a huge privilege to be able to experience
Mhm.
that, to see that, when for the vast majority of us, it's just such an abstract idea
Mhm.
that we can't even place any kind of importance on it.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that because I think that's that's almost like the larger piece of this for me is that I will never see that again. And I don't know if that um makes it even more memorable because of that, probably. But I think it puts into perspective how we we don't know what we don't know,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think so as a teacher, that's something that is important to me to helping my students understand. I live just outside of Chicago in a very liberal area, and my students are fortunate to have an incredible wealth of opportunities to be in an incredibly diverse school and to see people of all different races, cultures, ethnicities all the time. What their challenge is for some of them is understanding that the rest of the country and world is not like that. And I think when we, at least in our community, I think when we think about that, we think like somebody who lives in a very rural area, maybe it's just like a single race that lives in that area, and like, oh, wow, they don't know how diverse the world is. Well, but I think that the opposite of that is true as well. Like living in a diverse area is an incredible value, and understanding that there are places that are not like that. And then on top of that, there are places that we don't even know how much care they need because of the indirectness that exists, right? Like you said, it's kind of like an imagination, like or I'm sorry, I forgot the word that you used to describe Antarctica. Like it's not even something that
It's
is
an
fathomable.
abstraction. Like, it's
Abstraction.
just,
Thank you.
mhm.
Yeah,
If
exactly, right?
that's
Like
even is that a word, abstraction?
you know what it is now. We just said it.
Okay, okay.
I'll ask my English teacher friend later. Um, But but I think that point is so well taken because you can't comprehend it because you can't go. You can see pictures, you can see videos, and of course those are, just wildly incredible too. But to actually go there, you get this new understanding. And part of the reason I say this is, I guess to kind of circle back to the running aspect is, even if your goals or your whatever your capabilities, your access is not allowing you to go to some of these larger races that are really cost prohibitive sometimes, or like that does require a lot of time off, maybe challenge yourself to look for places that you wouldn't normally go to. Obviously, safety considerations and access considerations, whatever you need to do to feel good about that. But that's how you can grow as a runner also. It's seeing how those things, those communities and those activities happen in other places. That only lends to your knowledge and your understanding too. And how wonderful would it be if we all chose to go, do a race that is in a completely different place than us and gain a new understanding of those people, those places. Um, so I think that that's, something that we should try strive to do. And I think there's ways to do that too, that, we don't have to spend all the money to go to Antarctica to necessarily have that experience either. You can get that from going to the next town over,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing, right? When it comes to like travel is I feel I feel like there's so much emphasis on leaving the country, right? And I'm saying this as
Yeah.
for those of us who are in the United States, right? That emphasis of like, oh, traveling to Europe or going here, going there, when there are so many beautiful places here, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I think of
Mm-hmm.
not even that far, right? We're in North Carolina.
Oh
We
my
went
God.
to years ago, we went to one of the national parks there, and it's
Yeah.
an old growth forest. And we were there and we're like, this is amazing. You would never know that just here. And for
Yep.
us, it was a 13-hour drive away. So I think you're bringing up something really valid in terms of exploring what's in your quote unquote backyard,
Mm-hmm.
obviously taking those safety considerations seriously because the way things are politically here, it may not be
Right.
safe for everyone to travel everywhere.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
I am someone, and please people don't take any offense. I am a Latin woman, and there are certain states that I would be terrified of going to just
100%.
because of that. So would I
Absolutely.
want to go race in some of those places? Absolutely. Am I going to go race in some of those places? Probably not, just because
Yeah.
I won't feel for me, there is safety in going to a big city
Mm-hmm.
because I know a big city is going to be more diverse than going to a smaller city because I don't know what I'd be walking into. And that's something that
100%.
I'll be honest, prior to 2025, I didn't really think about. And
Mm-hmm.
yet it is very present in my mind. So I also just want to add that totally understandable if you're like, I'm okay. I'd rather travel across the
Sure.
country
Sure.
to run a half marathon. Go for it. You
Yeah.
people. But all
Well,
right, go
I
ahead.
just real quick, I just wanted to say to your point about, in your own backyard, there could be something. I think when I came back from Antarctica, I think one of the things I thought about was as amazing and as incredible and as unique as that experience was, I said to myself, like, okay, but don't forget to find the awe in the daily and in the local, even though you've had this maybe ultimate experience for some people. And to your point about that, we were in Mammoth Cave National Park not that long ago. And it was like underground in these caves, like this is just as stunning as the penguin I saw jumping off of a tiny iceberg, and I think we maybe assume that the bigger the better, or like the more extravagant or the more unique the better. And that doesn't necessarily have to be the case, because some of that awe can be found right next door too. And in the daily moments too. That doesn't just have to be a big trip as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is our alone memory.
Yes.
What is the community memory?
So that was the personal side. And then the more community aspect that I've been thinking about was, of course, uh, the Skokie Swifters Run Walk Club. Um, the last 5 years, they've really changed my running in so many ways, and for the better. And one of the things that always stands out to me is actually coming up this Saturday, next Saturday for us, is our annual end of the year run that we do together. So back in 2020, I started this kind of on my own, although I had some friends come to support and also a couple that ran with me. We have a trail path in our neighborhood that is almost exactly 20 miles long. And in 2020, I had been in the spring training for the Tokyo Marathon to get my 6 star. And unfortunately, 2 weeks prior to me leaving the country, everything was shut down, at least in Japan. And then a few weeks later, it finally got shut down in the US. So I had done all this training. And of course, as we all know, all races for the most part shut down. A lot of them went virtual. And I still was like, I felt like kind of at the height of my running at the moment. I had been training with a coach at that point. I had been doing really well. And I wanted something else to kind of hang on to. So in a probably like September, October of that year, I figured out that this trail was like exactly 20 miles. Like it's the year 2020. Why don't I go run the whole thing on New Year's Eve just for fun? So I kind of gathered my crew. We had a bunch of people come out. I did the whole thing. We had a little like parking lot party afterwards, and that was that. Well, the next year is when the Swifters started, and so that New Year's Eve, we put it out as a team event, and more people came, and it's just grown and since then. And last year was our fifth year for it, and I think we had the most people come and also the most people run all 20 with me. And this year, because of running seasons, I'm choosing to not run all 20. And we've also chosen to rebrand it as more of like a relay. So we have option for a team of two, each person runs 10. There's a team of four, each person runs five. Um, our buddy Felix is one of our hardcore David Goggin types, and we adore him. And he's going to still run all 20. So is another guy, Max. And so anyway, you can do the four, the two, or the full Felix. So it's the reason it makes it so memorable is because we do it together. So we walk, we stop, we get snacks. We might have some beverages along the way, but we stick together as a group. There is no separation. So we start as a group, people drop in, people drop out if they don't want to run that long, but we stick together the whole 20 miles. And it is the simplest thing, but I think it's the most meaningful because we're together. And it doesn't matter how fast you are. It doesn't matter how long you've been training. You can come in for as much or as little as you want, and that group will stick together for that whole time. Um, and then at the end, we'll have our parking lot party, and we'll have potluck, we'll have drinks, and it's the last Saturday this year of the year. In the years past, it's been the last day of the year. We've kind of switched the date this year to hopefully allow more people to come on a Saturday, but um, I think along the way, we talk about the year. We say, "Oh, remember when that thing happened?" Or, "Oh, this event is coming up next year." We make plans, we make goals, and it's just a really special thing for me to see how much it's grown and how it's stuck around too. Um, so that's very humbling. It's very humbling.
Okay, I have a question. This is just because I know you.
Oh.
Um, what is the name of this run?
Okay, so in 2020, it was called the um, End of the Dumpster Fire Year, So Long 2020 20-ish miler. And it maintained that name, for the last few years, because that was a dumpster fire year. And, every year since has kind of earned that name too. But this year we are we're rebranding it as the End of the Year Swifter 4-2 Felix Relay. So again, you can, choose the four-person team, the two-person team, or do the whole shebang and go 20 with Felix. But yeah, I think yeah, you know that we love a theme. You know that we love costumes, you know that we love all that stuff. So that's going to happen too.
Yeah, that's why I asked them. Like, I remember the first year and it was the dumpster fires.
Yep,
I'm
yep.
like,
Thank you for remembering that.
I was like, I wonder if that's still what it's called this year. That's the unofficial name,
It
right?
is. It always will be. It'll go down in history as that. When we write the Swifter books, there's going to be a whole chapter on that.
Yeah, the history of it. You'll have
Yep,
like the little chart with that chart with the lines and
exactly. Exactly.
so I love these two memories because they're both talking about the grandness
Mm,
of the experience of being through the vehicle of running, right?
yeah.
Where it's like running just happens to be the way that is expressed, or if not, it's the thing that like the connectedness, whether it's to your community or to your place on this planet in time, your awareness of that is made possible because of the running, right? You
Yeah.
probably would not have gone to Antarctica had it not been your goal to run on Antarctica. It might have just never been. And it's the same thing where these group runs, and even just the way that you've changed it this year to be able to include more people, right? You have more options. That running is that vehicle of connectivity
Yeah.
for you in both things. And I love it because you go from like total isolation in Antarctica
Yeah.
to complete just connectivity
Yeah.
with your community.
Well, and I think that I love the way you're describing that, and I think the group run aspect, it also allows for spectators. It allows for people to come along and support and just hang out for a little bit. A couple of our Swifters have been kind of our sag wagon too over the years, where they've taken people's food and taken people's clothing, and I think it it does make it all about connection, and everybody gets to be involved in some way. And I think with the Antarctica experience, we could also say that because even though you may not have that specific trip, you can find another way to be connected closer to home too, to be more connected closer to home. Um, and I hope that in this coming new year that we can find different ways to do that that work with us and through running too. That's the vehicle, as you said.
yeah. Okay, I have a few questions for you.
Okay.
We'll see where you take us. But first question is, if you could go back in time to speak to a younger runner version of you, what would you say?
Oh, wow. Hmm. I would say buckle up and get ready because it's going to be a wild, fun time.
I love that.
And don't stop either. I would say and don't stop. The moment you see a challenge, don't stop. Just keep going.
Mm. Okay. Thinking forward, what hopes do you have for your future runner self?
Hmm. Well, I think another reason that this season of running has been up and down is just with some physical challenges. Fortunately, in the moment, nothing major, but just turned 43. And I think things are officially starting to change a little bit. And I have some concerns. Again, nothing major, but we want to head off anything now before later. And so I think to my future self, I hope that I'm still out there. I hope that whatever the race, whether it's, I don't know, a marathon to celebrate my 60th birthday, or if it's a 5K at 75 years old, I just hope that that is something I'm still able to do, regardless of how fast.
Yeah. Who cares how fast when you're still doing it? Like that's
No.
just that's a theme. Okay. How do you celebrate yourself as a runner?
Oh, I share it with social media. I say, look at this thing I did. Look at these pictures from my race. Look at my medal. Um, so yeah, for sure, definitely do that. I I make sure to, and sincerely, I think for me, the social media aspect is also my journal. Like it's my way of recording that happened. And so I definitely go back and look at my stuff from the past, especially if I'm feeling kind of grumpy about running in the moment. I go back and I say, don't forget you did that thing. Remember how awesome that felt. And it's definitely a motivator. And if we're sticking to these two categories, community wide, every Tuesday at our Swifter meetups, we celebrate anybody that did a race that prior weekend. So I kind of, when it's me that did it, I feel a little extra special because I feel I'm often the one that's organizing and arranging things for others. And so when I get to say on a Tuesday night that I did the race this weekend, that makes me feel extra special too.
Yeah. Okay, two more questions. This
Okay.
one's the easiest one you'll get all day. And it's
Whoa.
It's where do we find you and how do we best
Oh,
connect with you?
oh, that is an easy one. Well, you can find me Tuesdays at Sketchbook Brewery in Skokie with the Skokie Swifters, and at 8 a.m. on Saturday mornings at Soul Good Coffee in Skokie. But really, you can find me on Instagram at Captain Six Stars. I had a bit of a name change earlier this year. And we also have a website for the Skokie Swifters, skokieswifters.run. So please, if you ever find yourself in Chicago, come on out and hang with us. We love new friends.
Yeah. Okay. Final question is, what are your final words for us?
um, just thank you. Thank you, Stephanie, for creating communities like this that people want to hear from us. Thank you for believing that I have something valuable to say. And thank you to everybody out there listening and supporting each other. I mean, like we kind of alluded to before, if you are somebody who relies on that virtual space and the social media space for your running community, um, that's so important. And I hope that you find support in what Stephanie offers, what I can offer. Um, and thank you for trusting us to help you on your running journey too.
Sabrina, thank you for being here. I'm not going to say anything else. Everyone, we're going to see you next time. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.